IPMNation.com.
Previously on Angry Drunk Tales.
Be angry. Me write angry emails.
Episode 11. The shit has hit the fan, and we can't scrape it off.
Me still angry. Me continue to write long, rambling, drunken emails. Me continue to be angry over incident several weeks ago. Me have emotional intelligence of 5-year-old child. Me bitter and frustrated with myself over being drunken 300-pound tub of shit. Me undiagnosed paranoid schizophrenic. Me Asperger's. Me write angry emails. Me hate everyone.
Hello and welcome to another week of Angry Drunk Tales. I am Matt Connerton.
And I'm Jen Coffey.
We are the former roommates of Asperger's. And we are going to continue in our story tonight when we left off last week with episode 10, Happy Drunk Turns Angry and There's No Turning Back. We had reached a critical point in our story where there was a conflict in the apartment, at which point Asperger's, who up to this point had been a happy drunk, showed us his belligerent drunk inside. And apparently, as the episode implies, once the happy drunk turns angry, that's it. He remains angry.
Right. And in last episode, and I'd encourage you to go back and listen to it, you'll hear things that are definitely very telling. You know, for example, like
a lot of foreshadowing.
Attempting to throw one of our roommates who had already paid rent out at 2:00 in the morning. And literally walking in there with her rent money and handing it to her and saying, "Get out."
He tried to
Napoleon Bonaparte.
And she's a very strong woman and she can very much handle herself. However, when you've got a 300-pound drunken, belligerent, angry drunk in your face,
yeah,
throwing money at you, saying, "Get the fuck out." It's a pretty damn scary situation to be in.
Oh, she was crying. I felt terrible. Because at that point,
what an awful thing to do to somebody.
Yeah, because that was kind of when I interceded, and she's looking at me like, and she's crying, and she's like, "Matt, am I really thrown out?" And I'm like, "No, Angela, don't worry. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. He's just drunk."
She totally, I mean, the way he put it, she was to leave at that moment immediately, and she was left with this feeling of terror.
Yeah. After all she went through moving in with the whole
Napoleon Bonaparte
thing and everything. That was one thing that was really astonishing, too, about this turn of events is he began to behave so much like
Napoleon Bonaparte
had behaved with this whole, I'm going to kick you all out bullshit.
Not only that, this is mine. Everything's mine. Mine.
No self-awareness. I don't think it's ever even occurred to him. I guarantee you it has never even entered his mind. I'm kind of acting like
Napoleon Bonaparte
here. I bet you it's never even occurred to him.
Probably not. No, because, and we'll get to some interesting points as to why we believe that later on in our story. But let's pick up where we left off last week.
Well, before we do that, too, I want to say, I want to talk about, because this was just, I think it was in episode 10 or maybe episode 9 that we read this email. The email where he's gushing about how much he loves us and how we're the greatest roommates ever. And a couple things I wanted to say about that. I mean, for one thing, in the present day, in these emails that he's been sending to us lately, which we'll eventually get to when we catch up to the present day, if we ever do. I mean, as long as he keeps sending emails, we'll have new episodes. But
have no fear. There are so many in the bucket to come that we have material to last quite a while.
We'll have easily at least 100 episodes of this show.
I'd say so. Easy.
But the thing is with that long gushing email, Actually, two things I want to say about that. Number one is, so in these emails that he's been sending us recently, he constantly calls us liars. Constantly saying that we lied and manipulated and everything, which I obviously don't believe is true. But when you look at his gushing email telling us about how much he loved us and everything, in the emails recently that he's been sending to us, which you'll get to hear eventually, he's been telling us how he never liked us and how he just played us and pretended to like us and this and that. And the thing is, that email, that one email where he sent gushing and telling us how much he loves us and everything, so that email clearly demonstrates him to be the liar, not us. Because if that email was bullshit and he never really liked us, then that means he was lying when he wrote that email. And if that email was true, and he really did feel that way at the time, then that means he's lying when he said he never really liked us, because he clearly did. So either way, that email proves that Asperger's is the liar, not us.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
And the other thing I wanted to say about that email, and this was something I mentioned to you off air, but I'll bring it up on the air too, is I wonder if that email, because that email happened right before the shit hit the fan. So I wonder if part of what was going on in his mind was if he felt rejected by us on some way, because he does have, like, I'm not kidding in the new intro when I say, you know, he has the emotional intelligence of a 5-year-old child. That's an exaggeration, but he does have the emotional intelligence of probably
I don't think it's much of an exaggeration.
maybe a 12 or a 13-year-old child. He's very sort of pre-adolescent.
No. As the parent, I would have to say no. I'll disagree with you on that.
Your Ed's parent? I didn't know about this.
No, God, no.
I feel
but
terrible
as
about how I've
parent,
spoken about him.
That's disgusting. The thought of that is disgusting. Oh, God, now I need to bathe. Jeez. You had to go there. But as a parent, honestly, his behaviorisms remind me of that of a 7-year-old.
Right.
And that's right around that age is when kids start to express their independence, and it's a me attitude. And it really does match Saint Eduardo's messages.
But I wonder now actually, I've wondered this for a while. I just haven't brought it up. If that email, if the lack of response from us made him feel rejected because he sent that long email, and I think you had said
you're not a long email guy,
right? I never replied to it at all. I never replied to hardly any of his emails.
I remember replying with something to the effect of, you know, how nice it was to hear, or something to that. But it wasn't a very long email because I'm not a. When it comes to my writing, it's all about my writing and my blog. But when it comes to emails, I'm a pretty quick and easy 2-worder kind of person.
Yeah, and I didn't reciprocate at all. I'm just not the guy who's going to write back and say, "Oh, Asperger's, we feel the same way about you and we love living with you," and just go on and on. Now, at that point, when we received that email, that's not to say that I didn't have very positive feelings about Asperger's and enjoyed living with him and thought highly of him.
But I always had that because of the
alcohol.
It was very difficult to be around, but I kept, trying to push that aside and go, not everybody's the same, not everybody's acts the same.
Yeah.
And he's basically will talk your fucking ear off about absolute bull crap that matters not.
And we were always very patient with him because we didn't want to hurt his feelings. We felt that he was genuinely, at that point, a really good dude.
And we thought he was our friend. And friends
so we were patient
sometimes need to vent and have somebody that they can, talk to. So we saw that as kind of, just him needing somebody to to talk to.
And that's the irony, is we didn't want him to feel rejected. So we were very careful about not doing anything because it was obvious that he wasn't very mature emotionally.
Hit about the 2 to 3 hour mark before you would actually get to the point of going, all right, I have to leave now because if I don't, this is going to 4 a.m. And that was usually around the 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning zone that you would be like, I got to go out. I'll catch up with you later. And that would end the conversation, and then you just go sit in the car for a little while.
Yeah, because honestly, I'm not Mr.
You did that because you didn't want to hurt his feelings.
Right.
That's the irony to it.
That's the thing, right? Like, I'm like walking on eggshells around this guy trying not to hurt his feelings because I'm a nice guy and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And I'm patient with people and whatnot, but I'm also honestly, away from the mic, I'm kind of an introvert, and by the way, not to say, for those who don't know, introvert doesn't literally mean, because a lot of people think introvert means something it doesn't. Introvert doesn't mean that you're a shy person who just never talks to anybody and you want to just be left alone all the time. That's not really what introvert means. But I am an introvert in the sense that, look, I'm not the guy who's going to have some drinks with you and stay up all night talking about just bullshit. I'm just not. I'm the guy who, I'm friendly and I like people and I think I'm reasonably social and I think I have some good basic social skills, but I'm the guy who...
I'd say you're better than basic. You handle yourself quite well in the face of presidential candidates.
Well, that's true.
And congressional candidates and so forth.
But I'm just saying, I'm not gregarious. I'm not the guy who's going to stay up all night drinking with you and just bullshitting. I'm the guy who, at a certain point, I might have a drink with you, if I'm your friend or whatever, and then I'm going to say, nah, you know what? I got to go. I got to go get back to work, because that's pretty much all I do is work. And not that I'm complaining. That's kind of what I like to do. I like to work. I know that Asperger's likes to present it that I don't work, but actually I work my ass off.
Thankfully, he was never in our bedroom long enough.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting when you mention that. I don't remember him ever actually asking what you do.
Well, that's the thing, too. And
I don't think he ever had a full understanding of what you do and how much work goes into owning and producing a radio station and all of the, and all the different hosts and all the different programs and wanting to make sure that you're doing your best by your advertisers, your sponsors, your shows, that everybody's getting, the best that they can get from you.
Well, the other thing...
It takes work and dedication. It's not something you just throw up and no, it's not a fucking podcast.
Well, that's the other thing, too, that will show up and that the listeners will get to hear eventually when we get to those emails, is that in the recent emails that we've been getting, there's also this theme of where he keeps saying that, I don't work. And it's like, no, that's all I do is work. But again, because he, like you said, he never did ask anything about what I do. So I think he thought...
I find it all really insulting, not only to us, but to IPM Nation and to all of our shows that we're proud to carry on IPM Nation, because they put a lot of work and effort into what they produce to us.
Yeah.
We take it from there. And there's a lot of work by a lot of good people to produce all of these programs.
Right.
And to belittle that and make it nothingness is an absolute insult, not only to us personally and to our station, but to every single one of our hosts and every single one of our shows for all of the efforts that they put in. And some of our shows are hosted on well over 100 different radio stations or internet stations. These guys put some seriously hard work and effort into what they do.
Well, because the thing is, Asperger's doesn't know, and he doesn't get it. Because what
I don't think Asperger's doesn't know, because Asperger's doesn't care.
Right, exactly. Well, Asperger's, it's only, the thing is, trying to have a conversation with him about any of this would be very difficult, because, one thing I did figure out pretty early on, and I think it's because he's so socially awkward and emotionally immature, there's really only two subjects you can discuss with Asperger's. Politics would be one, and by the way, I used to enjoy our political discussions, and the other is himself. He loves to talk about himself and his history and all the things he's done, but those are really the only two things you can discuss. There were many a time, I'd be giving him a ride somewhere, because he always needed a ride somewhere, and I didn't mind, because I'm a nice guy and I try to be a good roommate and whatever. Asperger's doesn't drive.
Can't drive.
Right. And, I might try to, in the course of trying to make conversation with him, mention something that we were doing or something going on with my show or whatever. And he would just kind of, how you can tell sometimes when you're talking to someone and they're really just not interested in what you have to say, or they just abruptly and awkwardly change the subject to either themselves, which would do a lot, or to something political, which I didn't mind, because I do like talking about politics. But that's how Asperger's was.
It's really icky. I mean, when you're talking or one of my awesome roommates is talking and they've got something that they want me to hear,
Yeah.
I want to give them my attention.
Yeah.
Asperger's!
You
And
can't
even
do
though
that.
I have chemo brain, which makes it harder on me, I will still even turn around and say, can you please repeat that again? Because
Yeah.
I really need to hear it a second time to get it to sink in.
Yeah.
I really care about what other people have to say. And yeah, you're right. Even in times when I would try to have just common conversation with him, being that we were the only ones home, and wouldn't it be nice to have that conversation just to be friendly?
Yeah.
It would immediately turn to, well, I used to make this much money, and I made
yeah.
this, and I'm going to do this product,
Yeah.
and I'm getting this, and a lot of an I'm gettings and I will and I had, but nothing about what I am.
Yeah, and he's just not interested in other people. And so I think what happened was, because, not all of my work, but a lot of my work in running IPM Nation is done from home. So I think he would see me at home on my computer all day some days and assume, I don't know what he thought, maybe that I was playing computer games or I was looking at porn or what, but I was
No, porn would
freaking
be on his end.
I was freaking working. And when
Asperger's!
would knock on our door at 2:00 in the morning wanting to talk about Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul or whatever.
Or
And,
Walking Dead.
I'm
or
on
the
the
latest
computer.
person at Brothers to piss him off.
Right. And I'm on the computer, and he, I guess, is assuming that I'm not doing anything important when in fact I'm trying to work, but he just didn't get it.
And this is a lot of people don't understand. In producing these kind of shows, it's not like you just sit in front of a microphone and talk. There's a lot of production that has to go into it after it. There's a lot of tracks that get laid upon other tracks. There's a lot of things to make sure the sound quality is good. And that's not just for the shows that we produce together or that you produce on your own, but for all the other shows that we carry, there's tweaks and different things that we do to make sure that they're getting the best quality.
Yeah.
And that takes a hell of a lot of hours. I couldn't even begin to tell people how many hours I've sat and watched. And you can see, I can tell because I know what to look for on his computer screen. I can see when he's working on putting different audios together or converting videos into audios together. I can see all of that going on and the tremendous amount of work. And to be quite honest, the one thing that you do that I can't follow is like the 50 friggin' screens you have open.
Yeah.
And you do that whole back and I have no clue on that. But,
Yeah.
then again,
Asperger's!
I don't even think looked at your screen or
He doesn't
asked any
nope,
questions.
he doesn't take an interest, and then he just makes assumptions.
He makes the assumption that, you're just sitting around doing nothing but, I don't know,
No.
maybe Facebooking all day or whatever.
I don't know.
Or reading whatever.
I don't know what he
And-
thinks, but I work my
and he-
ass off.
And he actually thinks I do absolutely nothing as well.
Yeah. And then he's got his douchebag. Again, this we'll get to these emails later in the series,
Yes.
but then he's got his douchebag friends, emailing us saying, "Yeah, you don't do anything." It's like, screw you. You have no idea.
You have to admire their
Loyalty,
loyalty. Yes.
blind loyalty.
Blind loyalty, of course. One of them looks awfully like a relative, though. You
Yeah.
got to admit the uncanny resemblance between him and Ed
Asperger's!
are spooky.
Yeah. There's
And their writing styles are very similar, so it lends one to think that there's some kind of a DNA connection there.
Well, just to clarify that, yes, one of the individuals who emailed us, who is an associate of
Asperger's!
who blamed us for including him in our little peer group of emails back and forth because we
replied all to Edward's emails.
Right, we hit reply all.
Because at this point, he's including tons of people.
Right,
But of course, we're giving you a lot of information that you're going to get more of as the series goes on.
Yeah, but yeah, he was including a bunch of these people. So we don't engage
Asperger's!
directly, but Jen and I did finally decide to hit reply all on one of these emails and just say, "Hey, all you assholes who think
Asperger's!
it's just the greatest thing, here's the truth." But one of these people, I found him on Facebook and looked at his profile pic, and I was like, wow, he looks like he could be related to
Asperger's!
That's weird.
And then that was followed by an email by that person with very similar language, lending us to kind of wonder. I mean, not that we care, because we don't
Right.
at all.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting coincidence, perhaps.
Well, it's a real guy. I mean, it's Asperger's. It's one of Asperger's rich friends. Asperger's. He's always bragging about his rich friends.
Which I find disgusting. I have
Yeah.
friends that are of great means, and I have friends that are from all economic spectrums, and I
Yeah.
don't run around talking about my quote-unquote rich friends or naming them.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, that would be an absolute violation of my friendship with them, to be touting them off because they're my friends and they have
Yeah.
money.
Well,
I mean, if that's all you put value on in life, I feel so sorry for you.
Well, truth be told, we know quite a few people who are wealthy and or very influential. If Asperger's really wants to have a dick measuring contest over it, but I'm not really that interested. I don't
need to prove myself to anyone.
Yeah, neither of us has the insecurity that Asperger's does to have to go around talking about all the important
Name dropping
people we know. Yeah.
and all of that crap is just bullshit to us,
Yeah.
because we see people as people and we judge them as people.
Right.
But we digress. Shall we get on to our wonderful reading for this Monday night's episode of
Yes.
the Asperger's Chronicles?
So, well, this will be several because there's several small emails, and then there's a big one at the end of this thread, I think, but we'll probably save that for episode 12 because we've spent a lot of time kind of catching everybody up on the present day and
Yep.
some of these theories about Asperger's behavior that are ongoing and evolving, but.
Gives you a little bit of background, so as you're hearing what's being written, it may help you to put it into the context of the situation and have a little bit more insight, because I know a lot of our listeners are very intelligent and use logic when they judge anything.
Right.
So in doing so, I hope you give us that little leeway where we're giving you that background information so you can use your own logical minds to decide on what you hear.
Plus, I had something I was going to... Oh, yes. We want to make sure, too, people understand this. You were in the hosptal at this point. This next set of emails, you are in the hospital.
Let's put that into
July
perspective.
1st.
I went into a really severe, massive spasm. My heart rate was about 170. My blood pressure was in huge numbers. My oxygen level was depleting. And we didn't even make it through my emergency kit before we knew that I had to get to the hospital immediately. Upon arriving at the hospital, they brought me back immediately and immediately started treating me. And it was a very difficult, very painful experience and very frightening experience that if you follow me on my blogs, you'll note that there was an email put up by my son who was at my bedside and truly and honestly was terrified that he was watching his mom die before his eyes. To shorten that up, I ended up subsequently having 4 spasms while admitted in the hospital, and every day that they would tell me they thought they were going to let me go home would turn into another day, and then I awakened to Eduardo.
Yes, the
in the
emails.
hospital.
So the first thing now, Asperger's had you had given Asperger's your laptop because it wasn't working. You were having trouble with it, and it finally just totally crashed. So that was
because he offered.
Right. He offered to fix
Which
it.
he actually screwed it all up, and I ended up having to have another friend fix, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's true. So so he sends us an email, and by the way, at this point, we haven't seen Asperger's for a few days because he's been hiding in his room, which kind of made us all wonder a little bit, but he's done that before where he sequestered himself in his room, usually because he had a lot of work to do or whatever. So I didn't think too much of it. I kind of wondered a little bit, but the night that the big conflict happened, at the end of the night, everyone was hugging, everyone was apologizing, everything was lovey-dovey, so I thought everything was settled. But finally, we get this email July 1st. This went to both Jen and I. Your laptop is fixed. I had to remove your password to get into it in safe mode, but you can always add one back in there. The registry was completed as I thought. You might want to run a virus scan to see if you picked up anything that might have corrupted it. Now, this is an important point because remember, and I think we already talked about it on the show, the same day that we moved out, which was July 26th, that very same day, your old website was hacked.
Yes, with Viagra.
With Viagra ads.
Viagra ads and links to places to buy Viagra.
Now, we can't prove that it's Asperger's.
It's just a very interesting coincidence.
Yes, that very same day that we moved out, your website gets hacked.
But the
after
irony-
Asperger's had your laptop
The
for a
irony
while.
to that was what he didn't know was my website was completely being in the process of move to entirely different servers, completely revamped.
So he wasted his time.
So if you want to check that out, it's jencoffey.com, JENNCOFFEY.com, and you can see the beautiful new website that my friend Jane built for me. That is amazing and secure, and she was horrified.
Yeah.
When she saw Viagra all over what was my own domain, and she actually went even a step further to protect my domain. So big shout out to Jane out there for all of your amazing work and just the interesting coincidence that you happen to have been in the process of fixing my website when my old one was hacked into a Viagra advertisement.
Yes.
And really, is that the best you can do, Viagra?
Well, that's what I'm horrified by.
Asperger's? You could come up with a hell of a lot better stuff than Viagra.
You've heard Asperger's brag in previous emails about how creative he is, and he goes and hacks your website, and the best he can come up with is Viagra ads. That's not creative at all, dude.
It's actually pretty used up and boring because everybody gets them in their emails and stuff.
A 13-year-old would have come up with that. Oh, I'm going to put Viagra ads on this website.
I think a 10-year-old could come up with a Viagra ad. I seriously think you're going too high on these numbers for age levels. It's kind of like dropping a smoke bomb in the bathroom.
Very lame. Very juvenile and very lame.
But I will say this. Thank you so much for the laugh.
Yeah.
Because it was hysterical.
Yeah.
Right before we're pulling down the old thing and clearing it all out, that we see all these Viagra ads. I will admit that I laughed. I mean, it wasn't the best. It could have been a hell of a lot funnier. But it certainly was at least a little humorous.
Yeah. So I responded to, so I'm thinking that, okay, this is a signal that everything's cool, but just to make sure, I respond, I hit reply all, and I say, thanks, Asperger's! Jen has been in the hospital last couple of days, but this will be good news for her to come home to, with an exclamation point at the end. And then you, replied all and said, I tried to find some Dove soap here, but I think
Napoleon Bonaparte
beat me to it, LMAO. Because you were also...
I was making a joke because when
Napoleon Bonaparte
this stuff was left behind for some bizarre and unknown reason, there was no lie. Over 25 bars of Dove soap, the kind, the big bars you get in the grocery store with the pretty Dove symbol in it, and unused, as far as we could tell, because they didn't, appear to have ever gotten wet. But they were just all out of the boxes, and they were everywhere.
Yeah.
They were in drawers and in closets and in boxes. It was
Napoleon Bonaparte
likes his Dove.
This incredible amount of Dove soap, and it was just bizarre.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he was trying to make his clothes smell better in the drawers or something. I don't know how that would affect electronic cables and why you would put Dove soap in there. But hey, I digress.
So you're emailing back and keeping it light, and we're thinking everything's okay. And then after I have just told this asshole Jen's been in the hospital, because I haven't seen him to actually talk to him because he's been hiding, this is what we get back. I think I should make you aware that I am looking for my own place. I cannot be disrespected by 20-somethings who in their own words have acknowledged that manners, etiquette, and respect are outdated ideas. I find it funny as well, as 3 people my age that I work with at Brothers, that kids this age complain about how hard it is to find work. Yet the 3 of us all agree that maybe their attitudes toward cultural norms have something to do with that. I don't have kids because I never wanted any, and to me, nearly everyone under 30 is still a kid. And then he sends a follow-up email that says, I have a few scheduled apartment showings tomorrow. So then I wrote back, and at this point I'm horrified. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're still stewing on this after after I thought everything was cool and that night everyone was hugging and everything. I'm like, what is his problem? So I wrote back and I said, with Jen's health issues, it really would be nice to forget the other night and go back to being one big happy family. None of us need the stress, especially not her, and she wasn't even involved in the conflict the other night. Not trying to guilt you into anything, just looking for a little compassion. If not, whatever. Kind of shocking that after all the drama we went through with
Napoleon Bonaparte.
now this? I'm genuinely shocked by this turn of events. Let me know if you change your mind. And then he writes...
And then, wait a minute. At this point, I'm in the hospital.
Yeah.
I've received that same email.
Yeah.
And I literally responded back. And I will admit, and this is something I'm not proud of ever doing, but there have been occasions in my life where I have. I literally was begging him in emails to please let me get out of the hospital. Let's all sit down together and have a talk, and let's work out whatever this is. And you know, because there can be conflict between people. Of course, we're all human. Can't we just all sit down and talk about it? Please, just let me get out of the hospital so we can sit down face to face and have that talk. I literally was begging this guy, which now makes me want to vomit, to let me just get out of the hospital so we can have a face-to-face talk.
But he doesn't seem to. And by the way, at no point when you were in the hospital this time or any other time, at no point has Asperger's ever said to me something like, by the way, how's Jen doing? Is Jen okay?
Actually,
what's going on with Jen?
And in hindsight,
he has never said that to me, ever showed any concern at all.
No. And at that point, it was obvious as to how upset Jess was, you know, in thinking that, you know, he was going to lose his mom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then not only that, but now that you say that, and I think back to this, there were 2 occasions when we were living there that unfortunately we had to call 911 because my breathing was really that bad.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, there was no way anybody was going to get me out of the house. We needed EMS and I needed oxygen and support. In both instances when EMS had to come and take me out of the house in respiratory distress, he went in his room, closed the door, and stayed there. He had absolutely no concern, no compassion, no I hope you feel better, no anything. And here I am in the hospital. And I don't get an email that says, how are you feeling or how are you doing? I get the email you just read.
But with those other instances, too, you're talking pre-conflict.
Pre-conflict,
even when everything was all happy and nice, he never... Now, I look at this a little differently in hindsight. At the time, I know what you're talking about him going and staying in his room. At the time, I didn't think anything of that because I can understand from his perspective, he might be thinking, I don't want to get in the way. Plus, this is all a little overwhelming, you know.
It is very difficult to see somebody in respiratory distress. So it's not an easy picture.
So I actually give him a pass on, as far as him going in his room while all this is happening, unless he needed to help with something, I give him a pass on that. Except I look back at it now, and it's like, he never goddamn once did he ever say to me, pre-conflict, when everybody was all happy, not once did Asperger's ever say to me, how's Jen doing? Is she okay? Never.
And at this point, unfortunately, I was ending up inpatient in the hospital practically monthly because there was so much going wrong with my body at the time. I kept having these episodes where I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And actually, you're wrong on something because I do remember one of the occasions when EMS came, you had to help them move some things to get me out. And he went in his room and closed the door. He did not stick around to help getting me out. They were trying to get me out.
Well, again, that by itself, see, if it were not for his lack of interest after the fact in how you were doing, I would give him a pass on that. Because, again, I can see how he might in his mind go, okay, this is overwhelming to me, and I'm you know, I can totally see that.
Yeah, but to not, like, even people who live in other countries that are friends with me were sending me messages.
No,
how are you
I get
doing?
what you're saying.
Are you feeling better?
Right, of course.
You know,
Yeah.
Even Angela,
Absolutely.
our other roommate, would message me.
Oh, she
and
was great
ask
that way.
Me how I was doing,
Yeah.
and had genuine concern for my well-being. I mean,
Yeah.
basically, at this point, there was so much going on. I'll admit, I was walking around with fears of dying.
Yeah.
And I was actually, kind of in a way putting affairs in order.
Right. So let's this episode's running longer than usual, but let's get through a few more of these short exchanges, and then we'll save the long ones for next episode. July 1st turned out to be a pretty pivotal day in this whole story because I'm scrolling down. I've got a lot of back and forth
all of
emails
these
from
emails
this
are
one
while I'm
day.
in the hospital, and some
Right.
of these emails are like with 60 seconds apart.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or 2 minutes
Well, because
apart.
that's what he does. So he's just told us basically he's moving out August 1st. I'm scrolling back up here. Okay, so I had said, sorry everybody. Okay, so I just sent him the With Jen's Health Issues email. And then, again, showing no concern, he just writes back and says, well, dude, first, if I had assumed that I could borrow Matt's car when he's not at home without first asking, then what would the assumption be? He should have asked. Again, this is Jesse using the projector with Asperger's. Told him he could use anytime he wanted. His response for this was, that was not necessary to respect me or to even ask because it's considered manners and etiquette. Meanwhile, the other 20-something also made similar statements. No, I think it's a bigger deal than you do, and said that manners, respect, and etiquette do not apply to them at all. A one-time thing is one thing, but if they feel that way about common social conventions being outdated and such, that suggests that such stuff will continue. And I wrote back and I said, only problem is I specifically remember hearing you telling him to feel free to use it whenever he wanted. Did he take that too literally? And Asperger's replied, he should have asked before using something I hadn't even used yet, especially if it meant taking things apart. And then I said, besides, none of us are perfect and misunderstandings happen, but I thought we were all easygoing enough that it didn't matter. Do you think I like this is the first time I ever confronted him with this, and probably the only time. Do you think I like it when you've been drinking and you knock on our door at 2 a.m. when my exhausted and ill girlfriend is trying to sleep? No. Frankly, it sucks and comes off as disrespectful. But we're easygoing people, and you know what? We, up until now, basically think you're a great, well-meaning guy, so we let that slide. We're not going to complain and sweat the small stuff, but apparently the rules have changed. Bummer. And then he wrote back, because at this point I'm done trying to smooth it over. Obviously it's not working. So I'm trying to...
don't care. It's all him, this.
So,
and you know what? Note to self, you're 45 fucking years old. What the hell are you doing drinking with 20-somethings that you're generations removed from? You are not going to share the same ideals, and you're going to come across things differently.
Yeah.
And he actually, and I will say this in defense of all three of those 20-somethings against, this 145 ignorant, disgusting tub of lard, that if he had actually listened to them, he would have understood their ethics, their morality, and how they treat others is very much is very similar and in tune with his.
Right.
There is just one difference. They don't hold a belief in blind obedience.
Well, there's also another big difference when there's alcohol involved.
Yeah, add alcohol to any mix.
Misunderstandings happen.
Not only do misunderstandings happen, but stupid shit happens.
They weren't all having the same conversation. That was obvious to me when I interceded. They were having two different conversations and couldn't get on the same page. So Asperger's replies, you can rationalize it all you want. It was still what it was, and his response to it told me all I really needed to know. And I said, okay, we'll agree to disagree. Jen is lying again, I say this, Jen is lying in a hospital bed right now, making calls and emailing, looking for our next place. You probably won't even have to leave to get away from us, no worries. And then, Jen, you wrote, okay, now my son is respectful, you did tell him he could. If it was me, I wouldn't think it was a one-time thing. I wouldn't do that to you either. If I told you you could use something, I wouldn't take it back. All of you were hammered, not just drunk. Stupid shit happens when there is alcohol mixed with politics. I can't believe how mean you were being. I thought we were friends and would talk out any issues. If you're dead set on ending our friendship and separating, well, we have no choice but to respect that. We will start looking right away. At least after I get out of the hospital, we will. Hard to do on bed rest, but I will get it going as fast as possible. This is so sad. And then I said, I do hope that, unlike with the Alex stuff, we can please keep this transition friendly and businesslike. That's how I like to do it. My number one concern in everything is having as little stress as possible on Jen. If you don't like us anymore, fine, but I hope that you will please be as chill as possible with this to minimize the stress on her. You know, trying to appeal to some sort of compassion. Humanity within the guy. And then
I don't think he has any.
And then Asperger's writes back, I was pissed as soon as I got home and my stuff was disconnected and was not asked. I'm done arguing about it. When I said something about it, he told me respect, manners, and etiquette are outdated ideas. And this was concurred by 2 other 20-somethings. If he had said, you can use my car if you like, I would not assume that meant to just grab his keys without asking first. But it was the attitude of it that I am talking about that really gets to me. And then you said, okay, I get it. My heart rate is going up. We will be out as soon as possible. And then Asperger's said, that's why I was looking to simplify things. And I said, understood, but we're not in a position to take over the place. It makes more sense for us to go, as we can probably find an option where we don't need a security deposit, etc. Us taking over the place isn't going to work. And then you said, you're doing to us what
Napoleon Bonaparte
did, getting upset over a stupid drinking fight, and you, the leaseholder for the next, and you are the leaseholder for the next year. I am in shock. I thought we were friends. I'm heartbroken. Please don't include me in any more messages. At least let me get out of the hospital bed, for Christ's sake. That's the email that you were referring to earlier. And then he goes, why? I wasn't looking for anything until August. This is July 1st. He's telling us this. August is next month. And
right.
And then you said, Matt, it's warm out. We can sleep in our car. Put the cats in a shelter. And then Asperger's says, and you moving still means I would have to contend with still another 20-something with that attitude I don't like. That's not necessary. If you haven't noticed, I have made it no small point to not be in any other room of this house since Saturday. And then I said,
how was I supposed to notice that? I wasn't home. I was in the hospital.
Right. And
so
then
I really, okay.
And then I said, Jen was overreacting with the sleep in the car stuff. She's just really upset. Obviously, we're not going to sleep in our car, and you just don't have to sequester yourself in your room. No one ever wanted you to anyway. I assumed everything had blown over, and you were just uber busy. And then I also said, I know you don't have much sympathy at the moment, but you got to understand, she's in a bed at Concord Hospital and struggling with some shit. And she's going to say some freaked out stuff. Don't take it personally. She's just really upset. And
on medication and on oxygen, and I got a port in my chest with IV stuff going at my friggin' heart.
Right.
You know, it's like I wasn't in the best of shape and the best frame of mind to be getting told that all of a sudden my home is not my home anymore.
Right,
and
of
I
course.
Need to,
yeah, that's a lot. and then
even though it was the best thing that ever happened to us, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah. And then Asperger's says, I have sympathy for you and Jen. I find it impossible to be empathetic for someone who would most possible say, this doesn't make sense, so I assume he was drunk at this point. I find it impossible to be empathetic to someone who would most possible say empathy is outdated, as he and her so easily were able to toss aside other supposedly outdated ideals that have kept society running for 85,000 years. I don't know where he gets that number. And then I said, there was a package at the bottom of the stairs for you. I put it in front of your door. Also, Jesse is leaving today to stay somewhere else, but I guess the Keurig is his, just letting you know in case you're wondering why it's gone. So at this point, I'm letting Asperger's know that Jesse is leaving.
Right, and he did have a prearranged situation. He wasn't to be there forever. He was only to be there for his internship and then go and stay with this really great family that we've all been known each other for, oh my gosh.
So
at least 10 years.
So this episode's run longer than, because we try to keep this sort of bite size, but we're at 43 minutes. So we'll finish up this episode. But we had a lot of this was a very important story arc.
It is.
To cover,
it's a plot twist that you just couldn't see coming.
So in the next episode, we'll continue with July 1st, where the emails from Asperger's get longer. So I can do some really good dramatic readings with those. It's hard to really get into the character of Asperger's with the short emails, but
well, you are trying to characterize a saint.
Yes, that's right, Saint Asperger's, as I'm sure his friends call him. So in the next episode, we'll continue with July 1st. We'll get into some of the longer emails, and I will tell you, as I don't think I've revealed this during the show before, but I will reveal, I've certainly done so privately, where I feel I made a mistake in all of this. And I will tell you where I feel some responsibility for this whole thing going the way it did, although ultimately it was going to turn out badly anyway. The end result would have been the same no matter what. I also recognize that because there was no reasoning with Asperger's. But I might have, if I had it to do over again, there is one particular aspect of this whole thing that I would have done differently, and we'll discuss that in episode 12. So we shall bid you adieu for now, and just remember, if you have a roommate, or do you have a roommate who likes to get drunk and send you emails?
Do you?
Good night.
Night.
IPMNation.com